Outside the double dungeon, Gingshil arrived with 7 elite hunters from the association. He knew his presence might not make much difference to Jin-Woo, but he came prepared, ready for anything. As soon as he stood near the entrance, a powerful surge of magical energy struck him. The frigid air from the storm hit him like a wall, freezing him momentarily. Gingshil quickly turned to his team, instructing them to urgently reach out for assistance from nearby major guilds and S-rank hunters from the Korean Association. As he stood there, his mind kept racing with questions. Who was Sun Jin-Woo? And how had he predicted the disaster so accurately? Inside the double dungeon, Jin-Woo sensed something was off. The architect's 6 wings began to rotate, transforming into 6 arms in the blink of an eye. Without hesitation, the architect charged at Jin-Woo, striking him with 3 of his new arms. Despite Jin-Woo's attempt to block, the impact sent him crashing into the wall. Before Jin-Woo could recover, the architect launched a series of rapid strikes with all 6 arms. Jin-Woo blocked each one, his hands absorbing the relentless pressure. The architect smiled, clearly enjoying the challenge as he watched Jin-Woo struggle. One powerful punch landed squarely on Jin-Woo's face, but he quickly recovered and retaliated with a decisive blow, sending the architect flying backward, half of his face severely disfigured. The architect sneered, impressed by Jin-Woo's resilience. For a lowly human, Jin-Woo was proving to be an exhilarating opponent. He had never expected a human to come close to matching him in combat. Though his vision was partially obscured by blood, Jin-Woo wasn't ready to back down. He demanded to know why the architect had created the system and why he had been chosen as the player. But the architect didn't answer with words. Instead, he lunged at Jin-Woo, ready to strike again. Jin-Woo quickly put distance between them and attempted a ranged attack using his ruler's authority skill. However, the architect brushed it aside, countering with the same skill. The clash of their powers created a massive shockwave, sending Jin-Woo flying. He realized his ranged attacks were ineffective and prepared for the next phase of the fight. The architect smirked, activated his ruler's authority skill again, and summoned nearby weapons, arming himself with them using all 8 of his arms. Remaining calm, Jin-Woo drew his dagger and asked the architect why he had given him such power. The architect responded that he was simply a designer and moderator of the player breeding system. He had never chosen Jin-Woo as the player and had even opposed it. Jin-Woo glanced at the system panel and realized that time was running out. He needed to end the fight quickly. Without warning, the architect charged, launching an all-out assault with every weapon in his possession. But suddenly, Jin-Woo felt his senses sharpen. He could predict every incoming strike, whether it was from a sword, spear, club, axe, or hammer. With ease, he dodged each attack. The architect was taken aback, seeing Jin-Woo dodge everything while his own power was fully unleashed. Not only was Jin-Woo evading every blow, but his speed had also increased dramatically. In a flash, Jin-Woo severed one of the architect's arms. The architect recoiled, shocked by Jin-Woo's rapid improvement. He began to understand why Jin-Woo had been chosen as the Shadow Monarch's successor. Furious, the architect summoned all the giant statues to join the battle, hoping to overwhelm Jin-Woo. As the statues charged, Jin-Woo activated his ruler's authority skill and slammed them all into the ground. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the architect. The statue of God tried to block his path with a powerful punch, but Jin-Woo swiftly dodged and launched himself at the architect. With a series of fast, precise slashes, he severed the architect's arms one by one. The relentless assault continued until a massive explosion rocked the dungeon. As the dust settled, Jin-Woo stood with his dagger pressed against the architect's neck. The architect was defeated. The architect admitted his defeat and declared the test to be over. The system halted the countdown at 2 minutes and 11 seconds, pointing a finger at Jin-Woo. The architect hinted that the answers Jin-Woo sought had always been within him. Just as those words echoed in Jin-Woo's mind, a system notification appeared. The data stored in your memory will now be retrieved. Will you accept? Jin-Woo stared at the system prompt, his thoughts clouded by uncertainty. He weighed the risks and paused for a moment, contemplating his next move. Finally, he made his decision and accepted the command. A blinding light erupted from the system screen, enveloping him entirely and pulling him into another realm. As his surroundings shifted, Jin-Woo found himself in an unfamiliar world. Above him, an endless purple sky stretched out as far as the eye could see. His body had transformed into a spirit-like form, floating effortlessly in the air. Looking down, he saw a vast battlefield filled with monsters of all races. Their eyes were fixed on the sky, and their gaze pulled Jin-Woo's attention upwards. Dozens of enormous gates began to appear, cracking open one by one, and large rifts formed between dimensions. The sheer number of these gates overwhelmed Jin-Woo, and he was filled with a sense of dread at the threat posed by these potential invaders. But before his thoughts were consumed by fear, his attention was drawn to a bright light emerging from one of the gates. A massive army of winged soldiers, clad in silver armor, began to emerge the legendary rulers. One of the rulers raised a gigantic trumpet to his lips and blew a powerful blast, signaling the start of an epic battle. The two armies collided, weapons clashing, and the roars of the monsters echoing across the battlefield. However, the fight was overwhelmingly one-sided. The ruler's army slaughtered the monsters without mercy. Amid the chaos, a dark figure riding a black horse appeared on the field. A terrifying aura radiated from him, and in a chilling voice, he uttered one word: "Arise." At that moment, dark power swept over the battlefield. The fallen monsters rose again, transformed into shadow soldiers. Their blood had been converted into a dark force that resurrected them as part of a new army. From above, Jin-Woo watched in disbelief. His power was nothing compared to that of the Shadow Monarch. The battle erupted once again, but this time, it was no longer a one-sided massacre. The Shadow Army, continuously regenerating, forced the ruler's forces into an unending struggle. One figure dominated the battlefield, riding his horse. The Shadow Monarch rampaged through the ruler's forces, mercilessly cutting them down. Wherever he went, destruction followed in his wake, and the tide of the entire war shifted in his favor. Meanwhile, back at the Carton Temple, 7 top-tier hunters from the association, along with guild members, arrived. A powerful surge of magical energy emanated from the temple, confirming their belief that Jin-Woo was inside. Dingxiu reminded the group that they were dealing with a double dungeon, a dangerous location he'd heard about directly from Jin-Woo. Hunter Chow, however, sensed something was amiss. The magic radiating from the temple didn't feel like Jin-Woo's power. She wondered whose power it truly was. Tension filled the air as the temple doors slowly creaked open on their own. Cautiously, the hunters stepped inside, scanning their surroundings. They were met with a chilling sight: shattered remnants of enormous statues littering the temple floor, creating a haunting scene. As the tension reached its peak, the architect appeared, his cold, unwavering gaze fixing on the hunters. To him, they were nothing more than intruders, lowly humans trespassing in a sacred place. The hunters were stunned to hear the architect speak, his chilling voice cutting through the silence. He warned them to remain quiet and not disturb the monarch's slumber within the temple. Jin-Woo stood motionless, his eyes blank, as though caught in a trance. The hunters, perplexed, wondered what had happened to him. Suddenly, without warning, the architect attacked with lethal precision, injuring 3 of the hunters in a single strike. He turned away with a menacing grin and declared, "Humans as strong as you may be are worthy offerings for the monarch." Meanwhile, deep within Jin-Woo's subconscious realm, the Shadow Army had just claimed a hard-fought victory. However, their celebration was short-lived. 2 massive gates suddenly erupted on the battlefield. From the Blue Gate, a majestic army of demons emerged, proudly waving their banners. These were the same demon clans Jin-Woo had encountered in the demon castle, and the sight of them stirred concern in him for Essel's fate. From the Red Gate came a horde of fierce beasts, led by a towering and terrifying wolf. The two commanders, one from each army, stood tall and defiant, issuing a bold challenge to the Shadow Monarch. The upcoming battle would decide everything. Back at the Carton Temple, Hunter Choi quickly instructed the group to regroup and move the injured to the rear. The architect unleashed his power once more, reanimating the stone warrior statues. With a wicked grin, he declared that the hunters would bear witness to the birth of the great monarch if they managed to survive. Behind him, the statue of God began charging a powerful laser beam from its eyes. In the blink of an eye, it fired a massive laser, tearing through the ground. Some hunters managed to dodge the blast, but the pressure of the attack was overwhelming. Choi hurled a fireball at the statue, then ordered the others to take this opportunity to destroy the remaining stone warriors. Jinchul struck one of the statues with a powerful blow, but his attack had no effect. From a distance, Choi continued to use his fire magic, warning the others that the monster had high resistance to physical attacks. However, he was stunned to realize that even his fire magic barely made a dent, meaning the monster also had high resistance to magic. Desperation clouded Choi's face as he looked at Jin-Woo, who was still trapped under the architect's spell. He believed that only Jin-Woo could save them from this dire situation. Acting quickly, Choi sent a small flame toward Jin-Woo in an attempt to break the spell, but the architect swiftly intercepted the attack and retaliated, roaring that no one could disturb the king's slumber. Choi froze in fear as the architect charged at him, but Gingshil and the other hunters rushed in, blocking the architect's attack just in time to save Choi. Jinchul urgently commanded Hunter Che to wake Jin-Woo while he and the others held the architect at bay. Hunter Chao dashed toward Jin-Woo, but the architect moved to intercept her. His sinister grin mocked her every move as he asserted his dominance. Meanwhile, in the depths of his subconscious, Jin-Woo witnessed a massive battle unfold. The demon and beast forces had allied and launched a full-scale attack on the Shadow Soldiers. Both sides fought fiercely, with the Shadow Soldiers regenerating each time they were torn apart, making them virtually immortal. As the battle raged on, the Shadow Soldiers slowly but surely gained the upper hand. The leader of the demon forces collapsed at the feet of the Shadow Monarch, who, in a cold voice, demanded to know why the demons had betrayed him. The demon leader sneered defiantly, and that was all it took to enrage the monarch. The Shadow Monarch grabbed the demon by the neck, lifting him off the ground before gouging out one of his eyes. He then tossed the demon's lifeless body aside and ripped off the mask it wore. To Jin-Woo's surprise, the face beneath the mask was that of Baron, the monarch of White Flames. He couldn't understand why Baron was there. Just as the realization hit him, Jin-Woo's consciousness shifted, and he found himself inside the body of the Shadow Monarch. A surge of powerful magic flowed through him, emanating from the black heart now embedded within him. Moments later, Jin-Woo sensed something approaching. Looking up, he saw the rulers descending toward him. A system notification echoed through his mind. Playback of the retrieved data has ended. Back at Carton Temple, the architect grinned as he observed Hunter Cha. He muttered to himself that humans were proving more interesting than he had anticipated. Hunter Cha steadied herself, preparing to unleash her sword dance skill, but the architect easily deflected her attack. He swiftly countered with a strike that landed deep into her shoulder, forcing her to retreat in pain and create distance. Choi was well aware that they needed to wake Jin-Woo immediately. Using what little energy he had left, he launched a fiery assault, briefly distracting the architect. Taking this chance, Hunter Chao sprinted toward Jin-Woo, but the architect intercepted her path, his enormous hand blocking her way. Swiftly, she dodged and shifted her position. The architect chuckled, acknowledging Hunter Che's agility. However, his amusement quickly turned to unease when he noticed something strange. There was a shadow soldier within her. With a cold, menacing tone, the architect demanded to know her connection to the monarch, pointing out that the rules of this place dictated that shadows couldn't manifest unless the monarch himself had summoned them. Gripping her injured shoulder, Hunter Chow stood tall, firmly asserting that Jin-Woo was their friend and that they had come to save him. The architect scoffed, dismissing it as contrary to the monarch's will, but he allowed her the chance to witness something magnificent, the arrival of a great monarch, though everyone else in the room would have to die. Without warning, Jin-Woo suddenly awakened. He struck the architect with an earth-shattering punch, sending him sprawling. Then, with overwhelming strength, Jin-Woo slammed his foot onto the architect's body. The hunters, watching from the sidelines, exhaled in relief. Jin-Woo's presence rekindled their hope for survival. In a chilling tone, Jin-Woo demanded to know, "What did you do to my body?" The architect stared back in confusion. The person standing before him wasn't supposed to be Jin, who was meant to be the Shadow Monarch. How could this human retain his identity, despite the black heart within him? At that moment, a system notification rang out. Demon Hunter title: "You have met all the requirements. You have recalled defeating the Demon King, Baron, Monarch of White Flames. A great power acknowledges you as its master. Black Heart effect, plus 100,000 mana." From the architect's reaction, Jin-Woo realized the truth. The black heart inside him wasn't a creation of the architect's, nor was it meant to enhance his strength. More importantly, there were still secrets within the system's data he had yet to uncover. With a wave of his hand, Jin-Woo summoned multiple daggers from his dimensional portal and aimed them directly at the architect, demanding answers. What was the meaning of being a player, and what had this creature done to his body? As Jin-Woo's interrogation began, the architect began to understand the cause of this unexpected turn of events. The Shadow Monarch had betrayed him by transferring his power to Jin-Woo. Infuriated, the architect warned that this betrayal would prompt the other monarchs to hunt Jin-Woo down relentlessly. In his rage, the architect revived the colossal statues. The hunters could feel the tension rise, realizing the battle had taken an even darker turn. The architect, his voice laced with malice, challenged Jin-Woo, asking if he truly had the courage to kill him. He bragged about being the creator of the system, the very entity that had fostered Jin-Woo's growth. However, Jin-Woo simply smiled, asking with calm certainty if killing the architect would return him to being a mere E-rank hunter. The architect's rage erupted. He attempted to seize control of Jin-Woo's system manually, but a series of notifications quickly appeared, blocking the architect's access. The architect froze, his eyes wide with shock at the turn of events. Jin-Woo, unfazed, explained that he had figured it out. This system wasn't some random chance. It had always depended on him, and now he had pushed it to its maximum potential. With that realization, Jin-Woo resolved to surpass all expectations and absorb the system entirely. In his mind, the system was nothing more than a fragile construct, destined to fail. Seething with rage, the architect let out a final scream, trying to resist with his last words. But Jin-Woo showed no mercy. With precise skill, he unleashed a series of dagger strikes, tearing the architect apart. Even in his final moments, the architect muttered in disbelief, his voice trembling as he pointed a shaking finger at Jin-Woo and foretold, "When the pillars of fire uphold the sky, an unavoidable death awaits you." Jin-Woo met the architect's gaze without flinching. He wasn't afraid. Outside the gate, the hunters waited anxiously, worried about the fate of the Hunter Guild, which had yet to arrive. Soon enough, the hunters appeared, but they were a broken, battered group. The elite hunters had returned in a miserable state. As Jin-Woo stepped out of the gate, he reflected on everything that had unfolded. The true architect could still be out there, and although he had uncovered some answers, not all of them had been revealed yet. Gingshil approached Jin-Woo and reported the loss of 20 hunters inside the gate. He added that if a dungeon break had occurred, the consequences would have been catastrophic. Seeing the casualties, Jin-Woo felt a deep sense of guilt. He realized that this was a direct result of his decision to have the hunters report the double dungeon to the Hunter Association. What he hadn't anticipated, though, was that both the association and the Hunter Guild would enter the dungeon just to save him. On the other hand, Dingxiel also blamed himself for requesting the Hunter Guild's involvement, which had led to so many deaths. Then, he asked Jin-Woo how he had known about the appearance of the double dungeon. Jin-Woo's response was simple. The dungeon itself had called to me. Dingxiel hesitated, unsure whether Jin-Woo was joking. However, considering the number of lives lost, he knew Jin-Woo wouldn't take something like this lightly. Hunter Che stepped forward to check on Jin-Woo. He reassured her that he was fine, but before he could finish speaking, he suddenly collapsed to the ground. Meanwhile, in Japan, thousands of tons of mana crystals were being transported using special trucks and scattered around the gate to serve as a source of magical energy. Yuri Orov stood overseeing the operation, confident that 200 tons of mana crystals would be enough to sustain the magic circle. Once activated, the mana crystals would generate a protective barrier, and Orov himself would absorb the surrounding mana to maintain its stability. Suddenly, Orov felt a presence watching him. He turned toward a nearby building and demanded that whoever was there show themselves. An association officer spoke up, mentioning that a dungeon break was expected the next day, and no civilians should be in the area. However, Orov declared that the presence he felt wasn't human. On top of a tall building, a mysterious figure stood proudly. The figure praised Orov's sharp instincts, revealing himself to be none other than Sung Il-hwan, Jin-Woo's father. Staring at the massive gate ahead, Il-hwan muttered to himself that everything was unfolding exactly as he had foreseen, a tragedy meticulously planned. The security surrounding the gate was tight, with military forces deployed and even tanks brought in to bolster defenses. The Japanese hunters arrived on the scene, and Tawatada questioned whether modern weapons would be effective against the monsters. Sugioto responded that if Yuri Orov failed, the military would act as the front line and, effectively, human shields. Staring at the gate, Sugimoto remarked that the full deployment of the military and S-rank hunters was a clear indication of how powerless humanity was in the face of such a colossal catastrophe. With the mana crystals spread throughout the city, Orov felt a sense of satisfaction, confident that he could handle the S-rank gate by himself. Cracking open a bottle of liquor, he smirked foolishly, imagining himself being celebrated as the man who single-handedly dealt with an S-rank gate. Taking a swig of his drink, Orov grew irritated when he learned that only 15 S-rank hunters were present to witness his grand performance. An association officer explained that S-rank gates had appeared in other countries as well, causing a global shortage of combat forces. Suddenly, the officer froze. The gate in front of them began to react, signaling that the dungeon break was about to begin. Meanwhile, in a hospital, Jin-Woo woke up from his coma. Not long after, Jin-Ho arrived to visit, breaking into tears upon seeing Jin-Woo finally awake after being unconscious for 3 days. Jin-Woo suspected exhaustion was the cause of his state, but couldn't shake the images of the war the architect had shown him. He then asked about the situation with the S-rank gate in Japan. Jin-Ho, his face somber, confirmed that it had already begun. When the dungeon break occurred in Japan, massive hordes of giant monsters poured out of the gate, leaving both the hunters and military forces in shock. It didn't take long for them to realize they were facing creatures on the level of an A-rank dungeon boss. Yuri Orov, however, arrogantly dismissed the monsters emerging from the gate. He activated his barrier, causing the surrounding mana crystals to react, forming a powerful shield that trapped the monsters inside the gate's area. The giants tried to break through the barrier, but it was far too strong. Orov's confidence grew as he mocked their feeble attempts. However, that confidence shattered in an instant when a colossal giant appeared so massive that Orov looked minuscule in comparison. The creature began to move, gripping an enormous sword, and with one mighty swing, it effortlessly shattered Orov's barrier. The scene then shifts to Korea, where Jinho's father is seen asleep at his desk. When he wakes up, a sharp pain suddenly shoots through his head. His assistant informs him that he had been asleep for nearly an entire day, and that, following his previous instructions, he was prepared to take him to the hospital if he didn't wake up within 24 hours. The assistant then hands over a report about a patient who had woken up from what was known as the eternal slumber. As Jinho's father reads the report, the assistant explains that the patient in question is none other than Jin-Woo's mother. Deep in thought, he wonders whether Jin-Woo possesses the power to cure the illness. Back in Japan, the enormous hand of the colossal giant grabbed Orov and dropped him straight into its mouth, swallowing him alive. The military wasted no time launching a counterattack. Tank cannons fired relentlessly at the incoming giant monsters, while combat helicopters took to the skies, engaging in the fight. Amidst the chaos, Sugioto declared that modern weapons wouldn't work against these monsters. He ordered his team to finish them off immediately. Tawatada and Hoshino leaped into the air, prepared to strike down the monsters' heads. However, the monsters retaliated swiftly. The swing of their massive blades sent the hunters crashing to the ground. The battle was broadcast live across Japan and neighboring countries. Jin-Woo watched the coverage from home, his thoughts racing. The situation felt eerily similar to the raid on Jew Island, and he feared that if it continued, all of Asia would be in danger. Suddenly, Gina emerged from her room, her face still showing signs of the trauma from the dungeon break incident at her school. With a pleading voice, she begged her brother not to leave. Jin-Woo gently stroked Gina's head, trying to calm her down. He assured her that he wouldn't go anywhere and encouraged her not to worry. In need of fresh air, Jin-Woo went to the park, where he spoke to Baru about Gina's condition. Baru explained that nothing unusual had happened, and that Gina had been sleeping all day. However, Jin-Woo could sense the lingering trauma within her, leaving him uncertain about what to do. As he walked away from the park, a car suddenly pulled up beside him. Jin-Woo was taken to the Eugene office, where he met Yumi Han, Jinho's father. Without any formalities, Mang Han handed Jin-Woo a check, emphasizing that he didn't believe everything could be bought with money, especially when dealing with someone like Jin-Woo. He hoped that Jin-Woo would understand his sincerity. Jin-Woo, with a serious tone, asked Mang Han what he wanted. Mang Han revealed that he was suffering from the same illness that Jin-Woo's mother had. Jin-Woo was shocked and asked if Jinho was aware of this situation. Mang Han explained that only his wife and secretary knew about it. He also mentioned that he was aware of Jin-Woo's mother's recovery and, in desperation, asked for Jin-Woo's help to cure his illness. Jin-Woo replied that there was nothing he could do. Mang Han then asked how his mother had been cured. Jin-Woo explained that if he knew how and could profit from that information, he certainly wouldn't keep it a secret. Jin-Woo then said his goodbyes and left the Eugene office. As he walked away, Jin-Woo couldn't help but feel unsure. He couldn't tell if Mang Han was truly ill or had ulterior motives. He also realized that the holy water of life was rare, and it needed to be used wisely. From a helicopter hovering above, a reporter delivered live updates on the tense situation unfolding in Tokyo. 2 days had passed since the battle against the giant monsters began, leaving unimaginable destruction in its wake. The city had been reduced to rubble, with every corner devastated by the rampaging creatures that obliterated anything in their path. At the forefront of the chaos, the colossal giant monster stood unmoving, like a grim statue guarding the entrance to hell. Its mere presence radiated an unyielding threat. Since the dungeon break, the hunters had managed to take down only 2 out of the 31 giant monsters that had emerged. With each passing moment, the hope of ending the catastrophe seemed to fade further. The scene then shifted to Jin Guild, where Jinho was shocked by Jin-Woo's decision to head to Japan. He warned Jin-Woo that the threat this time was far greater than the Jew Island raid, especially since the monsters they were facing were abnormally large. Despite Jinho's concerns, Jin-Woo reassured him that if this raid succeeded, a Jin guild would gain worldwide recognition. Though hesitant at first, Jin-Ho eventually agreed. But then, Jin-Ho's emotions surfaced. He insisted on joining the mission, revealing his bottled-up feelings since the Red Gate incident, the Jew Island raid, and the double dungeon. With tears in his eyes, Jin-Ho confessed that his only pride was standing by Jin-Woo's side and pleaded with him to allow him to come along. Surprised by Jin-Ho's outburst, Jin-Woo dodged the topic, stepping out of his office. He casually remarked that his plan to go to Japan was just a joke. On his way home, Jin-Woo was filled with conflicting thoughts. Those closest to him were concerned for his safety, but he was also aware that there were beings far stronger than him. He knew he wasn't a hero. When he arrived home, Jin-Woo was greeted by his mother, who immediately set the dinner table. While eating, Jin-Woo's mind was preoccupied with thoughts of Gina and Jin-Ho's father. It was clear to him that the time had come to make a decision. Deep down, he knew there were individuals much stronger than him, and that realization pushed him to keep growing. He resolved to return to the battlefield and continue improving himself. After dinner, Jin-Woo went to Gina's room and sat beside her. He admitted that despite constantly facing life and death situations, he always found a way to come back alive. Upon hearing this, Gina broke down in tears, asking if her brother was truly leaving. Jin-Woo reassured her that no matter the distance, he would always protect her. The next day, the Korean Hunter Association held a grand press conference packed with reporters. As the head of the association, Mr. Go opened the session with a brief speech. He emphasized the importance of the mission ahead. Afterward, Jin-Woo stepped up to the podium with a commanding voice, announcing that a Jin guild would be heading to Japan to address the dungeon break there. The press conference concluded on a symbolic note, with Mr. Go and Jin-Woo exchanging a firm handshake. The scene shifted to Japan's airport, where Jin-Ho was seen carrying a massive gear-filled bag, preparing for the mission. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo walked with undeniable charisma, his leadership aura radiating with each step, catching the attention of onlookers. Without much ado, the Jin Guild headed straight for the battlefield, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. On the battlefield, the military scrambled to evacuate civilians before the towering monsters could arrive. However, an elderly man refused to leave, determined to save those still trapped in the rubble. Reluctantly, a soldier begged the old man to leave, promising to stay behind and help evacuate the others. As the evacuation continued, a giant monster suddenly emerged from behind a building. Soldiers fired a barrage of gunfire, but their attacks had no effect. Tension skyrocketed as the massive creature reached out with its enormous hand, ready to grab someone. In an act of selflessness, a soldier threw himself in front of a civilian, shielding them with his body. Suddenly, a powerful strike sent the giant monster crashing to the ground with a deafening thud. The soldier watching was stunned to see Jima, one of Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers, join the battle. Jin-Woo approached calmly, ordering the evacuation to proceed immediately. However, another danger quickly arose. The ruins of the nearby building began to collapse. With quick reflexes, Jin-Ho shielded the civilians from falling debris using his barrier. Looking back at Jin-Woo, he told him he would help with the evacuation. Jin-Woo, with a menacing aura, locked his gaze on his enemy. Summoning a dagger from his inventory, he was ready for the fight. Jima struck the giant monster with his trident, sending it staggering. Spotting an opening, Jin-Woo sprinted up Jima's body. When he reached the right spot, he leaped high into the air and, with a single slash of his dagger, delivered a fatal blow, splitting the monster's head in two and ending the threat in an instant. News of Jin-Woo's heroic actions in Japan quickly spread to America, sparking varied reactions among hunters. They marveled at his bravery, but questioned his decision to face the giant monsters alone, especially considering that Mrs. Snellner hadn't activated his first level skills. One level 1 hunter remarked that overconfidence often led to a quick death. The conversation turned into a betting pool, with extravagant prizes like yachts and homes at stake, all on how long Jin-Woo would survive. Suddenly, Thomas Andre's deep voice cut through the chatter. With absolute confidence, he declared that he would bet the headquarters of Scavenger Guild that Jin-Woo would survive. He then reminded his crew to focus on the real threat ahead. Their own country was about to face a dungeon break. With a sly grin, he mused about the odds of survival and the upcoming challenges, contemplating that, while playing in Japan might be thrilling, the impending events in America would be just as exciting. Back in Japan, chaos continued to intensify. From a helicopter above, a reporter narrated the horrifying scene below. Jin-Woo's summoned creatures, his ant shadow army, were relentlessly devouring a giant monster alive. Elsewhere on the battlefield, a young girl ran frantically, pursued by a giant monster with its massive hand poised to crush her. Suddenly, a dark shadow enveloped her. In the blink of an eye, Igras appeared, slashing the monster's arm with lightning speed and saving the girl with intimidating calmness. As the giant monster struggled to rise, Iron leaped from behind and delivered a crushing blow to the monster's head, effortlessly toppling its massive body. Proud of his achievement, Iron celebrated, while Igras looked on, baffled by Iron's silly antics. From a distance, Jin-Woo observed the battle calmly, watching Iron's enthusiasm after his recent promotion. It was a brief moment of amusement amidst the ongoing chaos. A soldier approached Jin-Woo to thank him, and although Jin-Woo couldn't understand Japanese, he acknowledged the soldier's bravery with a thumbs-up gesture. He then signaled for Jin-Ho to escort the soldier to safety. Once the unnecessary hero squad finally left, Jin-Woo moved closer to the corpses of the giant monsters, preparing to bring them back to life as part of his shadow army. At the broadcasting center of the Japanese Hunter Association, the crew reported that Jin-Woo had successfully reclaimed Nagoya from the monster's grasp. Other cities, like Shizuoka, Takayama, and Nagano, had also fallen under his control. Matsumoto, who was listening to the broadcast, was stunned by the news. He had doubted Jin-Woo's abilities when they first met at the airport. Back then, Matsumoto had ordered Jin-Woo to stand guard in Osaka while he sought help from other countries, believing it was impossible for Jin-Woo to take on so many giant monsters alone. But Jin-Woo had coldly rejected that order, his powerful presence silencing the executives who had heard him. From that meeting, Matsumoto realized one thing: Jin-Woo wasn't just any ordinary hunter. He had grand ambitions and the drive to wipe out every single giant monster on his own. On the battlefield, Jin-Woo continued to use his power to reanimate the corpses of giant monsters, transforming them into his shadow soldiers. He designated them as number 1 through number 5. When Bu arrived to report that he had slain another monster, Jin-Woo gave the new foe the designation of number 6. Across Japan, Jin-Woo's shadow forces pressed on in battle, unstoppable in their advance. Tusk released a burst of fire, obliterating the head of one giant monster. Meanwhile, other hunters contributed with magical attacks, bolstering the fight. With his vast reserves of mana, Jin-Woo was able to continuously regenerate his forces, leaving the remaining giant monsters with no chance. But despite the monsters' fall, the threat was far from over. Countless unattended gates began showing signs of a dungeon break throughout Japan. Along with the giant monsters, new dangers emerged from other creatures, slowly overtaking the cities. A week after the dungeon break began, the devastation in Tokyo was clear. The city was littered with the wreckage of collapsed buildings, silent witnesses to the monster invasion. As Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho walked among the ruins, they could feel the weight of the tragedy. Jin-Ho couldn't hide his shock, commenting on the overwhelming destruction. As they moved through the rubble, Hanakawa arrived and joined them. Jin-Woo immediately asked if there were any other hunters in the area. Hanakawa replied that there were none, only the three of them remained in Tokyo. He also explained that currently there were 16 S-rank hunters in Japan, hailing from countries including Japan, China, Canada, India, England, and Russia. According to reports, 31 giant monsters had emerged from the gates, and one of them had even crossed the sea toward China. Thanks to Jin-Woo's arrival, most of the monsters had been defeated, with the remaining ones being handled by his shadow army and the other hunters. Jin-Woo thanked Hanakawa for the update, but there was still one challenge that loomed. A giant colossal monster stood motionless in front of a gate, staring at the creature and surveying the ruined city. Jin-Woo couldn't help but feel that this situation was eerily similar to his past experience in Demon Castle. He wondered if these events were clues from the system. Unfortunately, with the death of the system's architect, Jin-Woo had received no further guidance. He knew, however, that the power he wielded could stop future disasters. Meanwhile, Tawatada and Hosino had managed to defeat one of the giant monsters with the help of some shadow soldiers. Though they had secured a victory, Tawatada felt frustrated. She couldn't believe that a monster they had struggled so hard to defeat was so easily taken down by one of Jin-Woo's summoned creatures. She felt as though their efforts were just cleanup after the real battle had already been fought. Hasho did his best to calm her down, reassuring her that they had done their part well. Jin-Woo, meanwhile, kept his gaze fixed on the colossal monster standing before the gate. He sensed this was the perfect time to act. Most of his shadow soldiers had already gathered around him. Behind him, 3 shadow generals, Tusk, Iron, and Igras, knelt. Hanakawa was stunned by the sheer number and intimidating aura of Jin-Woo's shadow army. From above, Bu landed in front of the king and knelt respectfully. With a satisfied smile, Jin-Woo watched his army come together, completing their mission flawlessly. As their representative, Bu, the only soldier capable of speech, expressed gratitude for his king's praise. Jin-Woo then turned to Jin-Ho and Hanakawa, ordering them to keep their distance. Once they had retreated to a safe spot, Jin-Woo approached the remaining corpse of a giant monster. He uttered a single word, "Arise." With that command, he transformed the dead giant into a new shadow soldier. The entire shadow army stood tall in eerie silence, their eyes fixed on the colossal monster ahead. With one swift hand gesture, Jin-Woo commanded, "Charge." In an instant, his shadow troops surged forward, swarming the giant creature. But as they closed in, the monster suddenly opened its eyes and unleashed a massive sword sweep, wiping out hundreds of soldiers in a single devastating blow. Jin-Woo stood momentarily stunned, his mind racing as he realized that the monster's power was far beyond what he'd anticipated. Tusk wasted no time launching a fiery blast directly at the creature. Shadow soldiers, armed with axes, attacked from the flanks, but the monster swiftly countered. With a single motion, it deflected Tusk's magic with its left hand and sliced through the attacking soldiers with its massive sword. Hundreds of ant-like shadow warriors surged at the monster's legs, only to be crushed instantly beneath the weight of the creature's foot. The ground trembled as they were obliterated in one crushing stomp. Frustrated by how easily his smaller soldiers were being taken out, Boo prepared to advance, but Jin-Woo held him back, silently waiting for the right moment to uncover the giant monster's weakness. The shadow troops pressed on with relentless determination, attacking the monster from every angle, but it felled them effortlessly, one by one. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo felt the strain of constantly regenerating his forces. He could feel the draining weight of battle, his mana reserves thinning as the fight stretched on. As he surveyed the situation, Jin-Woo realized that the monster's body was protected by a formidable mana barrier. Yet, he also noticed a key detail. The creature seemed to instinctively guard its face against direct hits. Jin-Woo quickly summoned Kaisel, mounting him and charging into the fray alongside Igris. Boo flew in close, darting toward the monster's face, but the beast evaded with remarkable agility. From atop Kaisel, Igris swung his Demon King's sword, unleashing a lightning-charged slash aimed at the monster's head. But, as with before, the attack was easily avoided. Watching the monster's movements, Jin-Woo quickly deduced that the creature's face was its vulnerable spot. With renewed focus, Igris leapt, sprinting along the monster's shoulder before swinging his sword at the creature's face. The monster blocked the attack with its hand, but the distraction was enough. Jin-Woo activated his stealth skill, vanishing from sight, and silently moved toward the creature's face. In one swift motion, he struck with his dagger, leaving a wound that drew a painful cry from the monster. Seizing the opportunity, Boo launched himself at the creature's face, his claws slashing furiously. At the same time, Jin-Woo activated his ruler's authority skill, summoning a barrage of daggers from a dimensional portal. The daggers rained down in rapid succession, each one striking with precision. The battle was intense, with Jin-Woo and his shadow forces pressing their attack without pause. From a distance, Hanekawa watched in sheer disbelief. The battle no longer felt like a hunter versus a monster. It had transformed into a contest between two monsters, each battling for supremacy. Jin-Ho, too, stood frozen, his cold sweat betraying his awe and uncertainty. The giant monster, though mighty, was being relentlessly pressed. Its face, now its weakest point, was targeted again and again. Jin-Woo, not relenting for a moment, activated his mutilate skill. A series of slashes aimed at one of the monster's eyes followed. Without hesitation, he ordered Boo to charge. Boo dove in, piercing through the shattered eye with brutal force. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo and Igris continued their assault from outside, while Boo struck devastating blows from within the monster's head. Eventually, the creature's resistance faltered. Blood streamed from its mouth as it collapsed, powerless, to the ground. The system's notifications flashed one after another. You have defeated the enemy. You have leveled up. However, a sense of unease washed over Jin-Woo. The system message was different from the usual victory announcement for a dungeon boss. There was no mention of the monster being a final boss, or any sort of celebration for its defeat. Even more troubling, the monster's corpse couldn't be reanimated into a shadow soldier. Jin-Woo's thoughts were clouded as he wondered if this raid was truly over. Before he could process his concerns, Jin-Ho approached to congratulate him on his success. Jin-Woo quickly signaled for Jin-Ho to keep his distance, his instincts warning him that more danger might be on the horizon. Suddenly, the gate behind the fallen monster began to react. A fierce storm of magical energy erupted, so powerful that it enveloped everything nearby. The ground trembled as the overwhelming surge of power filled the air, and Jin-Woo knew that this fight was far from finished. Jin-Woo was stunned by the immense force surrounding him, something entirely new to him, something he had never encountered before. In an instant, he ducked behind Byu for cover, while Igris moved swiftly to shield Jin-Ho from the violent storm of magical energy. As the chaos unfolded, Jin-Woo's gaze fell upon the corpse of yet another giant monster being absorbed into the gate behind him. The magical pressure was so intense that it left a noticeable scar across his face. Recognizing that this was no ordinary situation, Jin-Woo urgently called out to Jin-Ho, telling him to stay outside and remain in a safe spot. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo leaped into the gate, determined to uncover what was happening inside. What he encountered was a sight beyond his expectations. He found himself in a massive corridor, the ceilings towering above him, surrounded by architecture that seemed to belong to the giant monsters, like a palace built in their honor. As he ventured deeper, he heard Biru murmur something about a mocking laughter echoing from the far end of the hall. Jin-Woo, sensing an eerie presence, quickly deduced that the enemy had already taken notice of his arrival and was amused by it. The further he advanced, the clearer the mocking laughter became, until finally Jin-Woo encountered a mysterious figure chained up in the middle of the corridor. The figure greeted him with a sly smile, calling him monarch. He begged for his chains to be cut, explaining that he knew the ruler's plans and needed to warn the other monarchs immediately. However, as he took in Jin-Woo's appearance, the figure looked genuinely shocked and declared that Jin-Woo was not the monarch he had been expecting. Intrigued, Jin-Woo demanded to know more about the stranger's situation. The figure explained that he had been used as a tool by the rulers to prepare for a massive war. He introduced himself as Ligia, the monarch of the beginning. Ligia revealed that the rulers were ancient enemies of the monarchs, and that they had their sights set on Jin-Woo as well. Ligia offered to help Jin-Woo on the condition that Jin-Woo freed him from the chains that bound his power. Jin-Woo, cautious, asked why he should trust a monster like him. In response, Ligia began chanting an incantation and activated his pledge of trust skill. A system notification appeared stating that neither the initiator nor the acceptor of the skill could lie to each other until the contract was completed. After a moment of thought, Jin-Woo decided to accept the offer, triggering the skill's effect. Ligia then made it clear that in exchange for his assistance, Jin-Woo would need to break the seal restraining his powers. As Jin-Woo agreed, he felt an unexpected shift in his body, a clear sign that he could no longer continue his deception. The weight of the moment was clear, and Jin-Woo knew that he had crossed the line. Curious about Ligia's ability to speak freely, unlike other monsters, Jin-Woo pressed for an answer. Ligia explained that the other monsters were inhabitants of the Chaos World, remnants of beings long subdued by the ruler forces, to the point where their consciousness had eroded. As a monarch, Ligia had managed to retain his rationality even after years of waiting for his freedom. It wasn't until he met Jin-Woo that he had found the chance to regain his strength. Jin-Woo then asked why the rulers kept sending monsters to Earth to kill humans. With a cynical smile, Ligia explained that the rulers' goal was to turn Earth into a battlefield against the monarch. They had seeded the planet with mana And while humans viewed the monsters emerging from the gates as disasters and mana as a blessing, they were unaware of the true nature of mana. The rulers had transformed the monsters into vessels for mana, using Earth as their battleground. Soon, Earth would inevitably become a living hell. Jin-Woo began to grasp the magnitude of the situation. This was more than just a battle. It was an eternal conflict between the monarchs and the rulers, with Earth caught in the middle as their endless playground for war. He then questioned why he had become a target for both sides. Leah explained to Jin-Woo that the power he wielded did not originally belong to him. It symbolized a betrayal by its true owner, turning him into an enemy to both factions. Leah promised to stand beside Jin-Woo, eliminating anyone who stood in their way, on the condition that Jin-Woo would break the seal that bound him. His gaze was intense, his eyes piercing through the air. Jin-Woo considered the proposal, suggesting that Leah might find it more beneficial to join his shadow army if he truly wanted to help. Calmly, Leah responded, explaining that monarchs were but ephemeral spirits. Once a monarch fell, their body could no longer be resurrected as one of Jin-Woo's soldiers. With a hopeful tone, Leah urged Jin-Woo to sever the chains that bound him. Jin-Woo murmured, beginning to grasp the situation, though unease gnawed at him. He approached cautiously, asking once again if Leah was truly committed to fighting by his side. Leah affirmed, emphasizing that this was the very essence of the pact between monarchs. Jin-Woo then cut through one of the chains restricting Leah's arm, but before continuing, he asked, "Would you stand with humanity as well?" Leah's silence stretched on, causing a momentary doubt in Jin-Woo. He noticed a mana crystal embedded in Leah's back. With a sharp tone, Jin-Woo remarked that this crystal suggested Leah might be under the control of a ruler, just as the other monsters had been commanded to kill humans. Feeling cornered, Leah suddenly lunged at Jin-Woo, but Jin-Woo swiftly dodged and struck him with a dagger, declaring that allowing Leah to live would only bring more destruction. Angered, Leah flung his jaws wide, preparing to devour Jin-Woo, but Jin-Woo, nimble as ever, evaded the attack and dealt a lethal blow, sending Leah sprawling. As Leah lay helpless in his final moments, he warned Jin-Woo that fighting more monsters would only bring the world closer to a full-scale war. He hoped that everything Jin-Woo wished to protect would be engulfed by the flames of battle. Jin-Woo, unwavering, looked at him with cold resolve. "Such a fate will never come to pass," he declared. In one swift motion, he ended Leah's life by decapitating him. A system notification flashed. "You have defeated the dungeon boss Legia, the monarch of the beginning. Your level has increased to 122. After the battle, Jin-Woo felt the pang of disappointment. He couldn't raise Leah as a shadow soldier, but he did receive Leah's mana core as a reward. Slowly, Leah's body began to fade away as Jin-Woo exited the dungeon. Meanwhile, in America, a helicopter touched down at the residence of National Level Hunter Christopher Reed. Mrs. Sellner and the Vice President of the American Hunter Association emerged, bearing urgent news. Christopher, ever skeptical, initially assumed their visit was about the new rank S-Gate. He outright refused to get involved. However, Mrs. Sellner clarified that the message was far more serious. She warned Christopher that he would soon be killed. Shocked and angered, Christopher dismissed the claim as a joke and demanded an explanation. Mrs. Sellner shared a vivid nightmare she had, one in which a mysterious figure defeated him. Despite her warnings, Christopher remained unconvinced, believing no creature could defeat him. Undeterred, Mrs. Sellner mentioned a potential solution: a Korean hunter named Sung Jin-Woo who might possess enough power to protect him from this mysterious threat. This name caught Christopher by surprise. He had never heard of Sung Jin-Woo and questioned his capabilities. After defeating Ligia, Jin-Woo exited the gate, feeling both relief and caution. He knew the battle with the monarch had been necessary, but even in chains, Ligia's overwhelming aura of magic left Jin-Woo with the realization that he would need to grow stronger to face the challenges ahead. The battle at the rank S gate in Japan soon made international headlines. Every giant monster had been eradicated, and Sung Jin-Woo's name went viral across social media. He was hailed as a potential successor for national-level hunters. Meanwhile, in China, Lu Jigang, a national-level hunter, had crushed a giant monster that had crossed the ocean into his territory. In Japan, Matsumoto, the head of the Hunter Association, admitted to his previous mistakes, while in America, hunters celebrated the successful closure of the rank S gate. At a celebration, Thomas Andre approached a group of hunters who had bet against Jin-Woo's victory. With a relaxed yet authoritative tone, he collected their wagers. His assistant soon briefed him about an upcoming international conference, which included Jin Guild, owned by none other than Sung Jin-Woo from Korea. Thomas couldn't help but smile at the thought of meeting Jin-Woo face to face. After eliminating the giant monsters in Japan, Jin-Woo added their power to his shadow army. Although one giant monster had managed to escape to China, Jin-Woo believed his forces were significantly strengthened. Soon after, Hanakawa approached Jinho with urgent news. Jinho answered the call to learn that he had to return to Korea immediately due to a family emergency. Without hesitation, he headed back to Korea, where his father's assistant rushed him to the hospital. There, Jinho discovered that his father had fallen into an endless sleep, a condition known as eternal slumber. Jinho, overcome with shock and sorrow, found solace in his father's diary, which revealed that his father had always followed his progress. Jinho wept as he realized the depth of his father's love and expectations. Outside the hospital, Jin-Woo had quietly entered the room. With genuine care, he retrieved the holy water of life and healed Jinho's father. After the healing was done, Jin-Woo smiled with relief. He had helped Jinho's family in their time of need. Looking at Jinho, he said, "It might be earlier than expected, but happy birthday, Jinho." Thank you for watching. We'll see you all in the final season 5 of Solo Leveling. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out the new season. You can find it in the comments or on our channel homepage.